All right. Okay, welcome, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to be doing the webinar. It's going to be starting shortly. So it's a little past 7:30, so we're going to get started. So my name is Dr. Marco Caravaggio. I'm a pediatric and family chiropractor. I work at the Network Family Care Center in Markham, Ontario, in Canada. And if you're seeing this anywhere else in the world, that's great. Welcome to the webinar. So the topic tonight is 5 strategies to manage depression naturally. And I'm going to be interviewing a guest speaker. This is Melanie Tinianov. She's a psychotherapist, a personal life coach, and also a Reiki master. So hello, Melanie.
Hi, Dr. Marco.
Just waiting for a few more people to show up. So just as the typical disclaimer, just so you know, this is not to be categorized as medical advice. All the content, the text, graphics, images, and information available on or through the webinar are for general information purposes only. The content is not intended to be a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Never disregard professional medical advice or delay it in seeking it because of something you have heard or read here. Never rely on information on this webinar in place of seeking professional medical advice. All right, so let's get on to the webinar.
This is something that we would love for you to implement into your lives above and beyond what you're already doing.
That's perfect.
Right.
That's fine. All right. So, Melanie, just give me a bit of your background on schooling and that kind of stuff, and why we should be listening to you.
Okay. I'm a graduate of the Transformational Arts College. It's a psychotherapy program that I graduated from with a special interest in holistic and spiritual basis. The depression is something I studied extensively, and it is a personal. I have a personal relationship with depression,
okay.
And therefore it makes it something that I want to look into more to help other people.
Okay.
Excuse me.
We are live right now. Melanie's got a little bit of a cold, so if you hear some hacking as we go, sorry about that.
I apologize in advance.
Yes. All right, so just tell me a little bit about how, if we want to define it, what is depression, that kind of thing.
Okay, so the basis for depression is it's a mood disorder that causes a persistent feeling of sadness and a loss of interest. This is not somebody who wakes up feeling sad and has a great day and then comes home and has a great evening, but then feels sad a moment later. The sadness is consistent, it is persistent, it is not something that's once in a blue moon, it is something that's happening every day. You feel like you're spiraling into hopelessness, disinterest, you're tired, self-hatred maybe, irritability, it's all of that and more.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So the chronic, like the persistent nature of it is kind of what characterizes it more, that's more of the key basically.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. So it's not something that basically what we have out there is we have people using the term very, very loosely. If they're feeling sad, oh my gosh, I'm so depressed. And they're really setting themselves up for something that they may not want in their lives. If they're posting in social media about feeling depressed when they really mean that they're just sad and having a bad day, if somebody's applying for a job or looking into something for their future and somebody of power looks into them and finds this comment, it could alter the perception of what the person really meant to say. Mm-hmm. So I would encourage people not to use the term loosely. It's a very serious and debilitating disease.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So as far as types, there's different categories, I guess, right?
There are different categories of depression and different levels of, different degrees of depression. We'll be talking not so much about psychotic depression, but we'll talk more about postpartum depression and seasonal affective disorder. Postpartum depression is a little more serious than the baby blues. Many women experience that after giving birth. Their hormonal and physical changes occur, and the responsibility of caring for a newborn, that can be overwhelming combined with everything else. So that's something very serious. That's personally what I've experienced, and it's quite scary. Very sad. You feel very alone, and this webinar was put together for people to let people know that they're not necessarily alone when they're experiencing this. The other one that I mentioned is seasonal affective disorder. A lot of you know it as seasonal depression. The sun goes away for most of our winter, and it does affect people greatly. So this is something that is not just once in a while where you feel sad because there's no sunshine. This is consistent again with the winter months, and you know that you have this when the depression suddenly lifts in the spring and there is more sunshine. So that's something we'll be talking about in a little more detail as well.
All right, perfect. So as far as people, what kind of people are more at risk, that kind of thing, if you could tell us a bit about that.
So major depressive disorder is one of the most common mental disorders in North America. Traditionally, we find it in women more than we do in men. There are different racial backgrounds as well that come with depression. Depression is not necessarily hereditary, although some people may be more predisposed to it. But like many other predispositions in health, we can combat it at the onset. We can capture it before it gets into full-blown effect.
Okay. So now that we know a bit about depression, so some of the causes, as far as what we know, what it might be the causes of it?
Okay, again, statistically, it's believed that depression is caused by a combination of biological, environmental, psychological, and maybe genetic factors. That being said, if people are not able to manage their emotions effectively, it could be something that leads to depression if you're predisposed to it. Okay,
I see. So, even myself, I read the research a lot, and, sometimes they're saying, okay, it's, a hormonal thing and the, neurotransmitter problem in the brain, certain things, but then there's other research kind of contradicting certain stuff. So it's kind of it's a very, challenging topic, and I'm sure nobody has all the answers, but we'll just see if we can kind of give people some strategies that, from a natural perspective, I'll give them some of the stuff that I've come across that I know that can be helpful sometimes, and then I'll get you to talk about some of your specialty and some of the things you actually do with clients that come to see you as well.
Absolutely.
Okay. So let's look into our first strategy. Strategy number one is actually getting outside and moving your body. So just this is sort of like from my aspect of it. They went to certain I know researchers went to look at in certain indigenous cultures to try to study quote-unquote depression, but they actually couldn't find anybody to study it on because they were actually, all out doing kind of what humans are supposed to be doing, moving, looking for food or getting outside, that kind of thing. A lot of societal, cultural things that they were all getting together doing stuff, right? So just as far as the actual physiology in our body, we know that when you're actually moving your joints, it's actually stimulating for your brain. So sometimes I know people can get into a rut and they just really don't feel like moving. And if you've ever heard that old expression, feel the fear and do it anyway, sort of thing. That's almost what I tell people sometimes. We don't want to get up. I don't want to do anything. Well, just feel the depression and get up and do it anyway, sort of thing. It may sound kind of funny, but just really say, I'm going to get up and I'm going to move. Tony Robbins is very big on that sort of thing. The posture of your body, your state, it can influence your mind. There's a mind-body connection. So if you're actually just getting up, if you turn your hands out and lift them up towards the ceiling, that kind of thing, raise up your head instead of being slouched over, just how your physiology can actually affect your psychology as well. So that's one of the big things we know, just, getting out there. There was a TED Talk I saw, a lady talking about posture, and she just said if somebody was kind of down, if they had difficulty smiling, if they actually just put a pencil in their mouth, it actually forced their mouth muscles to kind of take the position of a smile, and it actually improved their status, actually, which is kind of interesting. So that's the first strategy, just get outside, get moving. Obviously, it's winter time, so in the summer it's much better, and we can get into the whole vitamin D thing because there's factors that affecting depression and those kind of things as well. So obviously, if you're in the winter time, make sure you are taking your vitamin D. That would be something to consider as well. All right, so we're going to get into the next strategy. We're going to be talking about nutrition.
Before we go there, Dr.
Oh, yes.
Marco,
Sorry, go ahead.
If I could just talk about being outside and moving. This is where we're talking about the seasonal affective disorder. So not only for movement, but you're also getting the natural sunlight and you're getting natural vitamin D. Mm-hmm. That's critical in keeping your mood elevated and it goes along with the movement. But if you're not able to move around a lot outside, there's also there are special lamps that are made for this purpose that people keep either on their desk or by their bedside table or whatever. And it's something that gives them that natural sunlit feeling so that they can manage and feel like they've been in the outdoors when it's increasingly impossible in these winters.
Right, full spectrum lighting, that kind of stuff.
Right.
Yeah, that's an important thing too. Very good. And one of my favorite pieces of exercise equipment is actually a rebounder. It's a small circular thing, so much bigger than 1.5 meters. It's called the one I like is called a cellar sizer, and it's something you can just get up on top of it and just bounce up and down a little bit, and even that will get your body moving and get some stimulation into your system. Kind of help break a pattern. So next strategy we're going to get into is the nutritional aspect of it, and there's the old statement from Hippocrates, let food be thy medicine and medicine be thy food. And obviously there's, in the old days, many years ago, all food was quote unquote really organic, but now we actually have to kind of look for that now, and pesticides and hormones being in our food and in dairy products and all sorts of stuff. So our bodies are experiencing a bit of a shock from all this stuff. And, we need to kind of take a look at all that stuff, and, people, the holiday blues, that kind of stuff, and we're, getting through the holiday season, a lot more sugars and those kind of things. And so I'm just going to give you a list of foods that you can maybe just add into your diet, which are things that just, as far as ingredient-wise, we know that they can help brain function and help sort of mood as well. So I'll just go through the list here. So asparagus would be one. We could go into avocados, berries, cashews, chamomile tea, dark chocolate, always in moderation, garlic, grass-fed beef, green tea, oatmeal, oranges, and walnuts. So that would be sort of a top 12 sort of list of foods that can have a good impact on brain function and health, and just a general sort of overall helping with your mood. Any comments on that, Mel?
Yeah, I think that it's important, especially during winter months, to eat at least 4 or 5 times a day in smaller portions so that we stay consistent and regulated. I also think that it would be really beneficial for people not to be so hard on themselves and beat themselves up if they don't stick to the New Year resolution of dieting, or they don't stick to the healthy eating. There's a lot of guilt that can follow that. So again, being in touch and connected with your emotions is something that's really helpful in managing a depressive state.
Yeah, very good point, actually. So, bottom line is, if the kind of cleaner your diet can be, get into your green leafy vegetables, a good clean source of protein, nuts, food that you can find in nature is the best sort of approach as much as you can. And the less processed food, the better in general for everybody, not just people with the situation that we're talking about tonight. So we're going to go on to strategy number 3. And this is a personal development strategy, and this is one of my favorites because I'm kind of big on sort of, listening to the greats, trying to get some more information into your brain about improving your life, improving yourself. And, there's a number of really great authors that talk about strategies and things you can do to kind of improve yourself, basically. Just a short list of some of the authors that we like. Tony Robbins is obviously pretty famous. There's a chiropractor named Dr. John DeMartini, and he has some very good information about how people can kind of shift how they see things and their perspectives. Nathaniel Brandon is very important as far as self-esteem. He's really good on that. Jim Rohn for motivation. Deepak Chopra and Wayne Dyer, 2 of my favorites as well. Stephen Covey, very good as far as 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, those kind of things. Do you have any authors that you like, Mel, particularly?
I love all the ones you've mentioned. I also like Louise Hay.
Yes.
I like Susan Jeffers. Susan Jeffers is the one who wrote Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway. Mm-hmm. So I'm a big fan of that. There are so many fantastic authors out there and positive people that we can all learn from, but those are just a few.
Right. Okay. So those are things that people can do at home. Now, you in your practice, you actually there's a number of tools and strategies that I know that you can actually help people with one-on-one basically. So can you go over and highlight some of those main ones that you like and why you like them?
Sure. Well, one of the big keys for me as a psychotherapist is that people need a place where they can vent and where they can have time to just be heard. They don't often get that in their lives. So, for example, you have a person who is not feeling in their right mind. They may be feeling depressed. They have wonderful family and friends, which is fantastic, but they're not being given the time to express themselves fully in a non-judgmental way. We offer that at our clinic, and one of the things that works really well is giving people the space and the time to be able to talk and vent. So that's one of the techniques that we use, is just regular talk therapy. And on the more energetic side and the more holistic side is something called EFT. EFT is emotional freedom technique. It's a combination of ancient Chinese acupressure combined with modern psychology. When you use the two together, you're giving a complete fast track to the ability to focus and align your emotions and your thoughts, focusing, believe it or not, on the negative energy, because that's what needs to be dealt with in order to release. It's not something we do very often, not something we hear about very often, because it focuses on the negative and nobody really wants to do that. So it's a big step to take. It's a hard thing to do, but we do it, and because you're tapping on meridian endpoints, you are allowing the energy to dissipate over time.
Yeah, one of the there's an author, her name was Candace Pert, and she wrote a book called Molecules of Emotion, I think it was called. And just talking about the actual word emotion means energy in motion. And so very often if it's stuck, then there is no motion, and there's no energy, and there's no emotion sort of thing. So getting it freed up through the meridians or getting the energy actually moving in the body can be a big, it can have a really big impact on people.
Absolutely.
And like I say, I've seen EFT do some pretty amazing things on some people who've had war veterans, seeing some very, very challenging things during their and doing the tapping in the right way and seeing some pretty dramatic changes of somebody's had a problem for years and years and years. So it's good that you could have a one-on-one session with you, Melanie, in the office if people have that ability.
Absolutely.
That you could kind of guide them through that process. Which
right,
really
and it's highly effective with not only depression, which is what we're really focusing on today, but it's also really good for pain and anxiety and various things. There are people who have been in pain for a very long time and can't manage it, and that could lead to depression based on how they feel about themselves and how they're not able to get out of that funk. So it's highly effective. We rate people when we start with the tapping process, which is another term for the EFT. We start with a rating, and we get a measurement of how impactful a situation is in somebody's life. And let's say out of 10 it registers as an 8 or a 9, being quite high and quite serious. We'll tap that energy down and we'll get into some of it a little bit. And the person could, after 1 hour of this tapping, feel more like a 2 or a 3 and have more space in their lives to be able to handle the situation differently, more effectively, with more positivity, and they can really get through it a lot better.
Yeah, that's very cool. So is there any other things other than that you would do? Any other strategies or techniques that you have? Yeah,
there's a lot. One thing I like to do a lot with people is journal. I find that getting the written word out there is a huge release, that in itself. There are different strategies that we use depending on what the issues are, where it could be letter writing, it could be simple journaling, it can be releasing words in such a way that really benefits the client. And then, there's a little ceremony that can take place after the word is released, and whether it's crumpling up the paper and really throwing it out or tearing it into tiny, tiny pieces. We can also burn the paper to have that kind of release. There's a lot of release that comes with a written word. That's another technique that we use that's very effective.
Cool. All right. And anything else on that strategy there, Mel?
On those strategies in particular, not so much, but there are many others. My website is full of the strategies that we have in place. Not everybody will understand what each one is, but I invite anybody to call and have a conversation with me about it to see if they feel it can be helpful for them.
Okay, and we'll give the website out at the end of the webinar here so everyone can kind of go look at that.
Excuse me.
All right, so our next strategy that we're going to talk about is socialization, actually. And, if you want to talk a bit about that, Mel.
Yeah, well, socialization is key. There are people, if you have family and friends and coworkers and people that you connect with and can speak to, that's great. It's effective to your mindset to be with positive people. The other thing is, let's talk about the people who don't have somebody in their lives. They don't have a close friend. They don't have family around. They seem to be a little bit more on their own. It's very difficult to sit in front of a computer and maybe socialize on Facebook when you're not actually socializing face-to-face. That's one of the areas that doing some sort of natural care process would be very beneficial, whether it's Reiki, you're experiencing touch therapy, whether it's psychotherapy, you're able to talk to somebody and you're connecting. There are so many different ways to do it. So based on your background and how much you have in your life right now, even the people that you do have in your life, you've got family, you've got friends, and everybody's great and they're all very well-meaning, but how knowledgeable are they in what's really going on with you, and how much are you really being honest in sharing your innermost feelings?
Yeah, so that's often one of the challenges, because you're just going with relatives or friends or something that you might not want to open up with them. That's why somebody like you or like going to a practitioner of some sort can be helpful in that case, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, for sure. And even in our office, we try to have regular workshops and things like that where people can come out, and so that way you're kind of socializing with like-minded people, upbeat people, that kind of thing. So if you want to get into the sort of the instead of commiserating, I guess, always being with depressed people sort of thing, try to get yourself out into a different group, basically.
Absolutely. You want to hang around positive people. You want to be with the people that you aspire to be.
Okay, very cool. All right. Anything else on that topic? No?
No, I just, would maybe refrain, especially when you're feeling down in the dumps and on the verge of depression, for example. I would refrain from hanging around negative people or people with bad influences, because that's a time where we're so much more likely to involve ourselves in something that we will regret.
Yeah, for sure. Okay. So last strategy number 5, the natural strategy, is actually my expertise, which is the chiropractic part of it. And so there have been a few case studies and some other bigger studies with a fair number of people getting chiropractic care that they've actually shown some interesting results. One of the biggest studies in chiropractic, actually, almost 3,000 people were studied, and it was specifically studying the technique that I use in my practice called network spinal analysis, which is it's a light, low-force technique in chiropractic. It doesn't involve the usual sort of fast movements with the cracking, but it just involves very light contacts in very specific areas in the spine that actually cue the brain to pay attention to the body better and help the body develop strategies to self-heal and self-correct. And one of the studies, there was about 2,818 patients that completed the chiropractic care going through network care. 76% of those patients reported mental, emotional improvement, as well as positive changes in stress and life enjoyment over a period of several months doing the care. So the study, there was a study looking at upper cervical chiropractic care. They were also mentioning the study with network care. So in the upper cervical chiropractic care study, this is what the authors wrote in the end. Said the results provide tentative support for the effectiveness of upper cervical chiropractic care for anxiety and depression symptoms. They also stated that the present study found reduction in anxiety and depression symptoms and reduction in overall psychological distress among individuals with mild to severe depression, anxiety, or both. And just one thing we know, that when the spine is moving properly, it actually helps stimulate the brain. So if you have a healthier brain, it can actually end up being a healthier body, healthier outlook on life. And as I was saying before, emotions are energy in motion, so when there is actual putting motion back into the spine again is crucially important for an overall well-being for your body. There's also some other studies doing what they call subluxation-based chiropractic care, which is the same kind of care that I provide, helping the body correct dysfunctions in the spine and the nervous system for people that were with addiction problems as well. And they found that the people that were getting the regular chiropractic care, they were actually able to finish their addiction programs better than people who weren't getting it. So there's this sort of like internal sense of well-being that comes from actually having certain molecules and neurotransmitters just liberated when the spine actually gets moved properly. So it's a very, very important thing for overall body awareness and sort of self-esteem as well, generated from the inside, which is very important. So one of the other things I wanted to touch on, if we go back a little bit, just some other things I know that I'd like to just give you some information on, because this is sort of more recent stuff, but it's actually quite important. When people are thinking about depression or emotional problems, thinking about it in the brain, one of the biggest sort of revolutions that's coming in the last few years is looking at the gut-brain axis. So there's a lot of bacteria. We call them the good bacteria. You've heard them called probiotic bacteria in your gut, inside your intestinal system. Well, they're actually calling your gut, your intestinal system, your second brain. So you really need to take care of that as well. So one of the other strategies that might be very important for people, if you've gone through like a series of antibiotics, or quite a few series of antibiotics, and you've never taken probiotics to kind of reestablish that gut flora, that might be something very important to just reestablish the proper, we call it's called the microbiome, actually, on the inside of your body, because a lot of the neurotransmitters that are produced in your brain are actually also produced in your intestines. So there's almost more nerves in there than there are in other parts of your body. It's a very, very complex thing, but it's important that it has a good environment on the inside. And I know there are actually some doctors that are treating depression just by giving people probiotics. And so if you were born by a cesarean section, that would cause you to be more prone to have an abnormal gut microflora. So that would be important, making sure you're getting probiotic bacteria. If you've gone through rounds of antibiotics, that would be important as well. And one other thing I wanted to mention about postpartum depression, when baby is breastfeeding, if the mother is breastfeeding, the body kind of, I don't want to say it gives precedence to the baby, but it kind of does. So very often it'll take nutrients from mom to give it to the baby. So mother, she needs a lot of good omega-3 fatty acids for her brain, and so does the baby. So there's been some people that have kind of hypothesized that because mother's giving up, quote unquote, giving up her omega-3s or her essential fatty acids for the baby's health, that actually might be negatively influencing her brain and causing the sort of depression happening in her. So it's very important for mother to be taking a good source of omega-3 fatty acids. My personal preference, if for anybody who knows me, there's a mammalian source. It's not from a fish, and it's not from krill oil. It's from Canadian harp seals. And I like it because it's the exact same structure that would be in breast milk. So if mom's taking that for herself, she's helping her brain, and she's also helping the baby's brain. So that's a very important thing to kind of consider as far as the whole postpartum depression thing as well. So that's one other thing, another one, last one. Also, another big research study came out recently showing that artificial sweeteners, aspartame, sucralose, NutraSweet, all that stuff, they all have a really bad negative influence on your gut probiotic bacteria. It actually destroys your probiotic bacteria. So number one, causing more weight gain, usually, and also destroying the whole gut microflora, which I was mentioning before is vastly important for having internal body health and, the neurotransmitters and the hormones, all the right stuff that needs to be there. So one big thing, just look into some of the natural sweeteners. If you have to have sweeteners and things, look for the natural ones. Monk fruit is a good one. It's called Low-Hen-Go. Stevia is probably your number one because that's actually has good antioxidant values. Some people have a problem with the aftertaste, but sometimes you could, use a little stevia and a little bit of something else, like a xylitol or monk fruit or something like that to kind of help that sort of thing. So try to look for the natural sweeteners if you can, if you do have to sweeten things that way. So that way you can try to avoid just all the mess that happens with the artificial sweeteners, because they're also mainly neuroexcitotoxins too and can cause a lot of damage to the brain as well as the gut bacteria. So I think that's my 2 cents on that part there.
That was more like 10 cents.
Yeah.
So if I could, Dr. Marco, in addition to chiropractic, which is one of the reasons EFT and chiropractic work so well together,
yes,
because you're really focusing on the nervous system, and EFT is focusing on the energy, which is below the nervous system. So you compile the two together, and you've got something that is so incredibly magical and forceful that I can't see how anybody would not benefit from that combination.
Yeah, that's true. And like I say, I've been doing network care on people for more than a couple of decades now and stuff, and I've seen lots of people that have just said, coming under the care, I feel better, I feel happier. People are telling me I'm smiling more, that kind of stuff. There was actually a chiropractor in the States who told the story that just as a little side note, it's not necessarily dealing with depression or anything, but it's just kind of talking about the psychological impact of it. A guy was going to see this network chiropractor because of his shoulder. I don't remember what the problem was, but he had something that was paining him. Let's say it was the shoulder. And he kept saying, my shoulder still hurts, doc, shoulder still hurts, doc. And he kept saying that over and over again for weeks. And the chiropractor, every time that guy would come in, he would also bring his daughter to the visits. And then, so after about 2 months, the chiropractor got a little frustrated, and he said, well, he was trying to teach the guy that we're not really treating your shoulder, that's not the focus, but he just, in one day, he just turned to the daughter and he said, well, have you noticed anything different in your dad? And she goes, oh yeah, I've noticed something different. He doesn't beat me and mom anymore, right?
Wow.
So just something like that, the guy didn't know, I just came in because my shoulder hurting, but obviously there was another big transformation in his life that he wasn't really aware of, but everyone else was, right? So, it's very common in chiropractic to have, just a lot of amazing, people will call it miracles sort of thing, but just some pretty great transformations. And I know with you as well, just working with EFT and stuff, you've seen some pretty good things, and kind of having people, doing both things can be very impressive. There's that sort of synergy that goes along with that. So the physical and the energetic part of the whole body, and looking at it from a very holistic perspective.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
All right, so at the end, we're just going to give everyone our contact information. So the website for our office, Melanie actually has her office inside our office, but it's the Network Family Care Center. Center is spelled the American way. So it's networkfamilycarecenter.com. We're located at 3160 Steeles Avenue East in Markham, Ontario, Suite 216. The office phone number is 905-477-8900. And you can email us at info@networkfamilycarecenter.com if you have any other questions. And for Melanie?
So I can be reached there as well, at the same address, 3160 Steeles Avenue East, Suite 216 in Markham. Phone number 647-298-4352. My website is www.mindbalancecoaching.com, and email Melanie, MELANIE, @mindbalancecoaching.com.
All right, so that's basically the content of the webinar. Hopefully people found that useful, and there's some take-home information and things you could implement right away. And obviously, if you want to reach out and get some help with, connecting with a practitioner, we're here. If you're in the Markham Northeast GTA area, we're here for you as well. So, feel free to reach out to us. Any other closing comments?
No, I'll just, just talk about, again, in addition to the chiropractic care that you offer, psychotherapy is here to help our patients suffering with depression, to understand what it means for them. We find that consistent professional support is the key to coping and perhaps overcoming depression. So through psychotherapy, people have the opportunity to speak their mind, unedited, with no filter, really be heard for the first time maybe. And together we can fill someone's emotional toolbox with wonderful tools, teaching and educating on how to use the tools, and have them practice them in their world. Our goal is to have them live a wonderful, successful, and independent life, knowing that they can manage in the world and experience freedom and choice, which is so important that we all take for granted.
For sure.
And although we're always here to help, we're always here to support when you feel you need it. We want you to live your life to the fullest and as independent as possible. So our unique spiritual approach allows us to focus on the entire being and has proven to be extremely successful in combating depression on a multitude of levels. And I can't say enough that psychotherapy combined with network spinal analysis that you offer is such an incredible combination that it's like the cocktail is a natural person's choice.
Sure.
It's amazing.
Very cool. Very good. All right. So we're going to stay on here now after the seminar. So if people, there should be a chat box at the side there. You could write in your questions, and we may be able to answer them. We'll stick around if there are any questions, and if not, then you can always just email us, and we'll try to answer your emails, or we'll get in touch with you that way afterwards.
Can we also say that everything that comes through us is completely confidential? So I don't want anyone to feel like they can't contact us because somebody might know about it or anything like that. There's not that there's any shame necessarily attached to seeking help, but just know that it is completely confidential, and we value that very highly. Yeah, absolutely. Normal professional privacy and all that kind of stuff. Right. For sure. All right, so thank you very much for attending the webinar, and hopefully we'll see you sometime in the future. Thank you. Thanks. Good night, everybody.